Okay, so we were saying before the heat of the sun decided to blaze your phone
Yeah,
that you were married in 2019, and I remembered that. Your honeymoon occurred in 2022, right?
right. Yeah, yeah.
And then you were on the beach reading about Hank Aaron, his autobiography, and then you decided to do the song. So that's only 2 years. So when did you actually get to start working on the song?
Yeah, so I think this song, I don't think I've ever spent so much time writing a song before. It was
Mhm.
like, you probably have gotten the sense of how much I respect him so far. So I just really wanted to do right by his legacy. So
Mhm.
I had basic part of the chorus and the verses like probably only like 3 or 4 months after that honeymoon. So by like pretty much almost 2 years ago. But at that point, it was more of like a autobiographical perspective for me. It was like
Mhm.
how I feel about him, like how amazed I am, and like what it was like growing up and hearing the stories from my dad and watching the games. But like I said, I just took so much time with it, and as I read more about him and just fiddled with it, and you just do you play guitar or do you play music?
I used to play organ.
Okay.
I had 1 year of piano. I'm dabbling on very badly tuned accordion and
Okay.
iron iron drums. So,
Yeah. Well, you get it though. Like sometimes
mm,
things just feel right, and sometimes you're like, that needs a little more tinkering with. So then it really was about a year break, and then I went on another trip to Ireland last summer, and then something about being on the plane. I think it was just because you're shut out from the rest of the world.
mhm.
I had just been thinking about that song again, and I just started taking it in more of a mythological perspective, like seeing the sky as like a Greek, you know, god or something, or at least like what's that tier below God, demigod? I forget the word, but
Demigod is
yeah,
well, if you're talking about the mythological ones, it's demigod and then mere mortal. So,
yeah, right. So demigod. I was taking it more from that approach.
okay.
Um, and so that then it just kind of took on a new life of its own, and I wanted to get some of the fantastical imagery in there. So the line in the chorus about the brightest burning gamma in the night above Atlanta, that means like the ball that he hit is basically like this sparkliest star in the sky. So I wanted
Wow.
it to be down to earth, talking about his upbringing and the poor southern Alabama, but
Mhm.
then take it to these mythological heights. And once I knew that's the direction I wanted to take it, and finally, I think there were probably like 5 or 6 more late nights where I'm just like tinkering with the numbers of syllables and the exact words and stuff. And then it was about August last year when I don't think I changed anything else.
Okay. And then eventually it got released as a single,
Yeah.
which has been playing on Spotify for quite a long time. Now, is this part of that project that you're planning on
Yeah,
releasing
it will
halfway?
be.
Okay.
There's two released so far, The Hammer, and then I released an instrumental piece a few weeks before that. So I've
Mhm.
got two more probably coming out this summer, and then I'll be
Okay.
hitting the studio again to record probably 3 or 4 more songs. So I don't know what I'll call it. I don't know if I'll call it an album or an EP or how many songs it'll wind up being, but I'm all about that sound right now. Like you mentioned before, like the simple approach, just the guitar and vocals, but um, yeah, kind of like the old school blues approach of just the slide guitar and the singing. So I'm
Yeah.
into that sound right now, and I want to keep going with it.
So with the blues and the soul sounds that you're using, um, what actually brought you into the not I don't want to say dabbling, it sounds menial.
Hmm.
Um, what brought you to actually putting yourself into playing blues and playing soul?
I think it was the sound first off. Um, Kind of have like a philosophy that I've come up with about what the blues really are. I
Well,
don't know if it's unique to me or not.
if I remember, here's something that might spark your memory. You decided, well, first off, your musical instrument of choice was given to you by your father. He taught you three chords.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then from then, somewhere between the age of 16 and 18, you started dabbling, and then you decided, okay, I'm going to see if I really want to study. And you found an interest in studying Bach.
Mhm.
But that didn't last. You had
No, yeah,
one day of class, and you decided that no, that's not for you, for me. But you decided to change direction and go into African American studies,
yep,
where you mentioned, or you were caught mentioning, that that's where you got a lot of the information for going into blues. The feel of it,
yeah,
the sound of it, depending on where you wanted to go with it, you actually made it happen because you're recognized for it. I do know that when you went to San Francisco, you suddenly had a pining for the for
hmm,
country. You went to country touring, and then you came back to doing this, which is a cross between I'll say soul and possibly pop country, but it's
yeah.
it touches the right chords. I don't want to be
Thank you,
punished, but it really touches the right chords in the soul.
thank
So
you.
uh,
Yeah, I can speak on that.
you can go
Yeah, I
for
think
it.
so. So yeah, I think that all of the above, all those genres you listed, it touches upon all those, but blues is really at the heart.
Mhm.
And from the way I understand the blues, um, it's 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 what's at the heart of like so much good music, regardless of genre. That's a little bit like esoteric, but what I mean by that is like the blues to me, what it really means when you
Mhm.
get down to it is that it's the recognition that there's hard times in life, and that it's not the only times, and that in a way they're worth celebrating, and at least expressing, because they're a part of life and they lead to the better times. And you find that in the lyrics of the blues, and also just like the theory behind the blues itself. There are blues songs that are very minor key, very sad, and there are blues songs that are very major key, very happy. But by and large, the blues kind of exists between those two worlds of music. They're not
Mhm.
entirely happy, they're not entirely sad. It's just this very true, real to life experience. Like lyrically and just in terms of the music, it's a sound that we can all relate to, because every day we wake up and there's a bit of a good and there's a bit of bad. Just in the broader peaks and valleys of life, things go up and down. So if I back away from the philosophical BS for a moment, it's more like I was obsessed with the Allman Brothers as a teenager, and
Oh,
they
good.
were they were a rock band, but they definitely played within that blues vocabulary and that blues like
Oh, yes.
idiom. And then it was just kind of off from there. All my influences. I did start listening to country at one point, but again, like I was saying before, I think that a lot of the best country, it has blues in its heart, both musically and lyrically, and just in the soul of the performer. There's so much that's imparted by someone just in the tone of their voice.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm trying to think of the one bluesman, country blues artist that I actually followed for a long period of time. I think it was, I want to say Travis Tritt, but I don't know if that's his name.
yeah, he's good. He has the gruffness. He's great. I don't know. Yeah, he has some wonderful songs. Um,
Yeah.
I don't, I wouldn't classify him as exactly with blues, but something about the grit in his voice. There's something there.
Yeah. There's, but the blues, the country blues is. a lot of people put it in the countryside more than the blues side, but really the test of it is only by listening to it. If it gives you the same feeling in regards to what you're actually hearing, and if it has most of the country blues songs tend to be more on the sad side, somewhere between the middle of sad and happy. It's kind of melancholy. It's kind of a weird feeling, but it's a nice sound,
Yeah.
especially when it's sung and played properly.
Hmm.
So we'll find out what the name of your album's going to be when you come upon it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a surprise. As a person and as a person outside of being a full-time musician, that's pretty much what you're doing right now. You're gigging all over the place. You married a woman who more than likely supports you, because it's kind of difficult to actually fall in love with someone where they're not always around because of tours or because of other things that happen for their musical career.
Yeah.
Would you
She's very
say
supportive.
she's very supportive? She's not musically inclined, is she?
Not in the same sense. She doesn't play an instrument. She has a
Okay.
nice voice and she has wonderful taste in music. And that's actually something that we bond over early on. It's cool because we've been together now for 11 years. And so, she was with me when I was really just getting started playing, and she always knew what she was getting into, I think. And so when I am gone, or, when I'm making less money one week or 1 month or multiple months, she gets it, and she believes in what I'm doing, and it means so much to me. I tell her that all the time. Um, it makes it more meaningful to have that aspect of my life.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'm glad for that, and congratulations on a beautiful marriage and honeymoon.
Thank you.
Um, Now, uh, in the ins and outs that you're doing your career and having a marital life, no kids, right? I think you have a dog.
We do have a dog. Yeah, he's basically a child.
Which is true, because you can't leave him alone. You have to take him out for a walk, take him out for exercise. You leave him alone, he's going to destroy the house.
Yeah, yeah. We
um,
treat him like a child for sure.
oh, okay. Uh, he's a big dog, though.
Yeah, it was like 80 pounds. He's a big muscle guy.
So, do you actually take time for hobbies for yourself, or is it more
Yeah,
I'm doing stuff around the house to feel accomplished?
yeah. I know what you mean. So we do have a house now, and so yeah, where we bought our house about, oh man, we've been in there for almost 3 years. So I'm
That's
starting to
good.
realize, yeah, starting to realize more and more all the work that it takes. But I wouldn't call that a hobby. It's just that I'm starting to take a little more pride in it. But I do, I love video games and I love Star Wars. And as a matter of fact, I'm playing on Saturday, on May the 4th. So we're actually going to dress up as Star Wars characters for that day. This is with a little trio in downtown Nashville. But
Nice.
yeah, reading sci-fi, playing video games, whether it's sci-fi video games or some sports games too. I love that kind of nerdy stuff. And actually, another
Okay.
song of mine, "Can You Feel It?" It's another one you
Mhm.
may have come across. That one was, I actually started writing that song on a different May 4th a couple years ago, because the whole idea, the whole inspiration of it was like the Force. I didn't name it
Ah,
specifically, but can you feel that other thing happening out there? And as Yoda puts it, between the table and me and the trees and the car, it's everywhere between us.
so coming back to the music, there's certain songs that you've done that were just amazing. But I need your take on your perspective on the following one, which I don't remember the title. But I do know it's what caught the heart of your girlfriend, now wife, because you feel basically after that happened, you decided to get married within a matter of months or
Uh-huh.
weeks. So, what was your perspective on actually strumming her heart to that degree?
Oh, right, right. You're talking about the acoustic one?
Yeah,
Yeah. We were wrapping up our time in San Francisco, about to make the move back east, or back south to Nashville and closer to home. And it was like I had thought about proposing maybe at the Grand Canyon or somewhere along the way, but I had started writing that song, and essentially it's called I Don't Know. The whole idea of it is I don't know what the future is going to hold. Who the hell knows? We could get sick. You know, anything could
yeah,
happen. But I do know that you and I are going to be together, and for whatever comes our way, we'll be together for whatever it is. And so I'd started writing that song in the lead up to leaving, and then I finished it, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna play her this song tonight, and I'm just gonna propose to her. It was our last night in our apartment, so it wasn't a whole lot of fanfare or anything, but it was an authentic and heartfelt proposal. Not a big
mhm.
old grand gesture, but it was a great night, meaningful evening.
Well, I think it doesn't have to be a grand gesture if it's coming from the heart and it's meant with all the possibility of positive vibes and well, you've been through a lot between now and then with your now wife, so I'm quite happy that you actually did that. And when I was reading that, I actually had a little
Hmm.
bit of teary eyes because it's not something you see often. Often it's grand gestures that end in tragedy, which unfortunately is not the same thing as what you did in the confines of your apartment. But she said
Yeah.
yes, and that makes me happy.
My Representative Stephen Shore.
Mhm.
He's with SS Productions, so he helps me with Rhinestone and all number of aspects of my career. We also put a show together called Always on My Mind, which is like a celebration of country classics and other roots music. We call it country classics because that sells a little bit easier, but then I throw as much blues and R&B and soul in there as I can. And
Mm.
in addition to that, then those are good shows because they kind of have a built-in audience. When you say you're going somewhere to sing Glenn Campbell or Willie Nelson and Patsy Cline, people show up. Less
Yeah.
people show up when I just say, "Oh, it's Andy Kahrs coming to play his songs." But that remains my biggest focus, and that's where most of my energy goes. When I'm writing and practicing and thinking about what's next. So yeah, I got that other music coming out this year, and hopefully I'll continue to spread my reach for my original music further and further outside of the Nashville Southeast bubble.
The last question I have is simply this: what's your favorite food dish?
Hmm. Can I say ice cream?
Well, you can. It's a food.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm thinking, does it have to be like a meal? Then I would say
No.
ice cream. Yeah.
Okay.
Mint chocolate chip, I think, is my favorite. I've thought before that I've joked with friends before that if ice cream was healthy, it's all anybody on earth would do. It's all you'd either be in distribution or packaging or research and development. Every industry would somehow be related to eating ice cream.
The only other question that did come to mind, you're a songwriter. Have you tried selling your songs or tried to say, I wrote this, would you mind singing it to someone
Yeah,
else?
a little bit. It's something that I'm absolutely open to. In
Yeah.
Nashville, just about every person you walk by on the street is trying to do that same thing. But I mean, I'm not saying that the town isn't full of unique people, but I do think I've carved out a little bit of a niche and a sound for myself and a style. So I think that I have a catalog now that somebody who's interested in that rootsy kind of songwriting could find interesting. So yeah,
Okay.
I've sent it to a few places, no luck yet, but I have hope that something will happen one day with that.
So if you decide, if let's say that in the next 24 hours you decided to write a song, you managed to actually get that ping inspiration to actually do something that actually is solid, and you wanted to market it to someone that would like to buy it. You retain the rights, if I remember correctly, unless you sell the whole thing like Willie Nelson did for some of his songs earlier in his career. Um, how would you go about to actually do that though? Because there's a lot of roadblocks. That much I know for
There are.
songwriters.
Yeah. From the way I understand it, most places, most people representing artists aren't going to give you a second thought. They're not going to give you a first thought if you're not represented by a publisher. So that's step one, having some kind of representation in the publishing world, which I don't have, but is something that I've thought about looking into further. I think that I've been focused so much the last couple years or so on reigniting my passion for playing guitar and just
Mhm.
getting so into that. I don't want to say my writing has taken a back seat because it still remains so important. It's just the output has been less.
Mhm.
So I think before I really make a concerted effort to um, to try to find some publishing representation,
Mhm.
I would like to have a catalog of probably, I don't know, maybe even like a couple dozen more songs
Okay.
because they just get so much. And so you want to have a really good portfolio when you go to seek that representation. But that could only be a year or two away, like in which comes pretty quick. Seems like
That's
time
true.
goes by faster and faster.
That's very true, sadly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Andy, thank you so much for taking the time and being part of this particular interview process.